Hello and welcome. A yachting holiday is a holiday I've always viewed strictly for the preserve of the incredibly wealthy and some of the famous. When you look on social media, you see some of the most spectacular photographs. It looks amazing. But chartering a yacht is incredibly expensive. Depending on the age, the size of the boat, for example, you can pay anything from about 150, 200,000 US dollars and above just for a week's charter. And that's before you throw in food and fuel, for example. And then a few months ago, whilst organizing a family holiday to Ecuador, the option to explore the Galapagos Islands on a shared charter came up, and it made a yachting holiday a lot more realistic, a lot more attainable, because you're paying a fraction of the overall charter fee. And we ended up really enjoying the experience. And I thought, oh my gosh, I would never otherwise have known. And it's opened my eyes up to the limitless possibilities of other destinations where you can explore on a shared charter. I'm Anesu Sagonda, and I typically produce educational luxury content. But from time to time, I like to veer off script and create content that's a little different, but still within the luxury space, typically focused on experiences, as a way of motivating and inspiring my viewers to try something different. I'm going to split this video into 4 sections. I'm going to start with the cost, and then I'll move on to etiquette, what to wear, and then finish with the cons. I'm really going to be focused on the shared charter experience, but from time to time, I'll also include elements of the exclusive charter purely for illustrative purposes. Broadly speaking, with exclusive charters, you are quoted a weekly charter fee. And what that weekly charter fee entitles you to is exclusive use of the boat during the course of your entire charter. I say exclusive because it's the entire boat with the exception of the crew rooms and the captain's quarters. But otherwise, you get to decide where you sail, when you sail, who you have on board, activities on the yacht, activities around the yacht. You decide all of that. You'll also be quoted an APA, which is the Advanced Provisioning Allowance. It's calculated by the captain, and it's a percentage of the charter fee, and it's based entirely on your schedule, the activities you'd like to participate in, the food and drinks you'd like to consume, mooring charges, also the type of boat, and in turn the fuel consumption. He will calculate a percentage of the total charter fee, and that is a kitty you will need to deposit prior to sailing, and that is what is used to cover all of your incidentals. During the course of your charter, if the kitty does start to run low, you will also need to top it up. But otherwise, you have full access of the boat. You come and go as you please. You choose where and when you sail, who you have on board. You just have a good time. It is your space entirely. And then at the end of your charter, there's also the tip. The staff go above and beyond to ensure you literally have an absolutely outstanding experience. And tipping is highly advised, and generous tipping. In the shared charter, which is what we did, you pay an all-inclusive figure that covers everything. We went with a company called Golden Galapagos. I'm going to include the link to their website in the description box down below. Do take a look at their website prior to booking, because they always have special offers, promotions going on, regardless of the time of year or the season. So it's worth taking a look. And the rate that you see is per person. You need to multiply that by 2. And they have a total of 5 boats in their portfolio. Their top 2 boats are Endemic and Elite. We went on the Endemic, and they are the biggest and the newest boats. The figure you pay is an all-inclusive figure, so it covers access, use of all of the communal spaces and facilities. You also have an exclusive suite. The boats can take a total of 16 people, split amongst 8 cabins. The cabins do not have locks on the doors, but each room does have a safe for your personal possessions that you'd like to secure. And the rate also includes all of your meals, breakfast, lunch and supper, snacks in between, all of the non-alcoholic beverages. You will be billed at the end of the the trip for all of your alcoholic beverages. The figure also includes all of the activities you'll participate in, all of the additional equipment you will need, whether it's wetsuits, flippers, snorkeling gear, for example. But what you have to do is sign an indemnity form at the beginning to ensure you don't lose or break anything. But there are a lot of staff on hand before, during, and after each activity to ensure you're able to use the equipment. And at the end of an activity, someone always goes around to make sure nothing's been left. So you would be incredibly unlucky if you lost or broke anything at all, but you do need to sign the indemnity form. But they have thought of every eventuality. They have all of the necessary equipment you will need. And so you have an all-inclusive figure that covers absolutely everything with the exception of alcohol. And then at the end of the trip, they do suggest a recommended tip, and they actually give you a breakdown based on the experience of the staff, seniority, for example, on a daily basis. And then depending on how long your trip was, then you multiply by the number of days. And the staff, as you can imagine, go above and beyond to ensure you have an absolutely outstanding time. They have a lot of activities organized. They have fantastic meals. They have 2 chefs on board. So you have freshly prepared meals for every single meal. They cater for all dietary requirements. And the boat is very well maintained. There's somebody on hand. Every time you're out of the room, someone comes in to freshen up the room, to make the bed, to pick up towels. Whatever may have happened during the particular period you're in the room, they'll always tidy up after you. So the staff are on hand, they help, everything runs meticulously, everything is neat, it's clean. It's a fantastic compromise between exclusivity, where you have access to absolutely everything as and when you please, to a shared facility maintained to a high standard. Regarding etiquette, it's essentially a hotel on water, and you behave in the same way you typically would in a hotel with other guests, being mindful of the level of noise you're making, using the shared facilities, sharing with other people. All of the meals are buffet style and they're catered for 16 with a little bit extra, and just being mindful of the fact that everything is done for a group, to be shared as a group as opposed to an individual. The one big emphasis the brand did make through the manager of the boat during our sailing was footwear. Getting sand from outside is literally the enemy. And the shoes you wear on the boat always stay on the boat. They never leave the boat. And the shoes you wear on land, you need to remove as soon as you get back onto the boat. Every time we came back onto the boat, you were hosed down your clothes and your shoes, and you left your shoes, and then they were also cleaned by the staff. But you never wore those same shoes around the boat. You had a pair of shoes, typically a pair of flip-flops, that you used on the boat that didn't have any sand or any other debris from outside. So that helped to keep the boat incredibly clean. But sand from outside, particularly from the beach, is a nightmare once you get it all over the boat. Regarding the clothes, there are 4 recommendations I would like to make. The first is multiple swimming costumes. We were on a boat where there was the option to participate in a number of water sports. Think of kayaking, snorkeling, paddle boarding, diving, for example. I am someone who particularly likes snorkeling, and whenever there's opportunity to snorkel, I will always go for it. But I'm also somebody who doesn't like getting into a wetsuit with a wet swimming costume. I always have to start with a dry swimming costume. We were on board for 5 nights. I would recommend something similar if you're around 5 nights a week, for example, having 4, possibly 5 swimming costumes. 5 is a push, but it's entirely what works for you. But I would recommend 4 at least, because you have 2 for the morning. We also had the option on our boat to participate in water sports in the morning and also in the afternoon. So having a dry costume for the morning, 1 for the afternoon, and then the next day you also have another dry swimming costume for the morning and afternoon. But the second day, you're able to dry the first 2 costumes that you wore. The second recommendation, which is an absolute must, and I'm glad someone had actually shared this with me, is rash vests. I'm going to try and find the link to my particular rash vest because I really liked it, and I would highly recommend it because it was very comfortable, long sleeved, offered fantastic sun protection, especially when kayaking. The fact that the material was stretchy, it was light, it was breathable. And I also like that It had a fully extendable zip on the front. The third is water shoes. I cannot recommend them highly enough. I think they're the best shoes to wear, particularly if you spend time on land, on the beach, nature walks, or even swimming. They are fantastic. They are light, they're comfortable, they're easy to transport. And then at the end of any activity, when we went back to the boat, especially as we jumped off the Zodiac, there'd always be somebody right at the front of the boat to hose you down and help you get out of your life jacket or any equipment you were carrying or wearing, and then hosing you down. Water shoes are absolutely fantastic because they're light, they're easy to clean, and then you just leave them on the side in the sun and they dry or partially dry, ready for the next time you disembark from the boat. And then the fourth is attire. What do you typically wear on the yacht? It's casual attire, very similar I found to safaris. When I've gone on safari in Southern Africa, the camps will always recommend light, breathable attire. Certain colors work really well and blend in with the nature. But on board, I would still say a lot of casual attire. I would highly recommend cotton, linen. Think of sets, a top and a pair of pants, loose fitting, very comfortable, light, breathable pants, especially if it's very hot. The attire is just generally very comfortable, relaxed, easy attire. Jeans I found were just a little too restrictive, more of the light, breathable pants. And what I found a couple of nights, I think it was more because there was a birthday, a couple of people had nice tops, but it's generally incredibly casual. And then moving on to cons. The first is seasickness. There is the real potential you could struggle with seasickness. You never really know until you're actually in the position. And I remember the second night, it was fairly turbulent while sailing during the course of the evening when we were asleep. We set sail after a couple of hours after dinner, and we sailed through the evening until we arrived in the morning where we needed to be. And it was fairly choppy, but once my head hit the pillow, because I was always tired every evening, I didn't feel anything. But it was only in the morning where I noticed things had moved around and other people had said, oh, I had issues with seasickness. How did you manage to sleep through that? Luckily, I'm not somebody who struggles with seasickness, but please do take tablets because your body could react on one occasion, and then the next time you go, it doesn't react, but please do have them on hand. The second is the rooms don't have locks, which is a positive and a negative. It's a positive because from a safety point of view, the staff are able to get in and out, particularly if there's an emergency. But from a con point of view, it means anybody has access to your room, but you do have cameras around the boat, so they'll be able to see what's going on. And you also do have a little safe in the room for your valuables. I would also recommend not taking valuables to begin with. I remember one person on board having valuables, expensive jewelry, expensive sunglasses, and they were always mindful of it, and you almost felt as if you had to be careful for them. And I remember snorkeling and they had diamonds in their ears, and I thought, oh my gosh, what if someone kicks you with a flipper by mistake? Because it happened and it knocks the earring off. It wasn't my problem, but it's something I didn't want to consider. And then I also remember an occasion when someone kept saying, oh, my sunglasses are so expensive, whilst they're paddleboarding. And I was thinking, why are you wearing expensive sunglasses whilst paddleboarding? It's just not appropriate, and it just makes it awkward for everyone else having to be part of the conversation. And then the final is the fact that you are on a shared charter. You don't know who else will be on the boat. We were incredibly lucky because all of the people we were on board with were between the ages of 50 to 70, so we're all within the same sort of age group and a fairly active group. I remember talking to a couple at a different place in Ecuador, and they mentioned they had done something similar on a different boat, and they had older guests, but the older guests weren't as mobile, which affected the activities they could do, the number of people, and just being able to do things as a group and the pace at which you're able to move, particularly if you have people who are older and not as active, not as strong. That can affect the dynamics of the rest of the group. But luckily we didn't have that issue. Everybody participated in all of the activities. We didn't have any issues, or we didn't have to wait for anyone or help someone else because they needed a little bit of extra help. But that was just luck on our part. But what I would recommend is Going with friends. If you organize the holiday with friends, you know who's on board and you are able to work with your friends, you know the dynamics. And if it's an active group, you're all active, or if it's a group that's not so active, then you're all not active together. So that's just something to be mindful of. You will meet strangers. They may be similar, like-minded, or they could be the total opposite, and you have to adjust accordingly and ensure that it doesn't affect your enjoyment of the holiday. But it's something I'd highly recommend. I am eyeing the possibility of visiting the Antarctica on a boat. Spoke to a couple who had done it and they thoroughly enjoyed it and would highly recommend. A very different experience. It's cold, different attire, different activities, but that's all part of the fun. As always, any thoughts, any questions, let me know in the comment section down below.